This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Commissioner Sankey, we really appreciate you making some time for us. You heard Sam Pittman in our cold open talking about the Foreigner concert he was just at, kind of what's been on his summer playlist as of late. I know you've got a variety of things you got to focus on, but what have you been listening to as of late this summer?
With some of your colleagues, there's a Name the Tune annual event, and I was stressed because I've been listening to too many podcasts. So as I flew up here, I actually had Zach Brown Band on when I was flying up from Houston, and it'll always pivot to U2 as well.
Okay. Have you seen either of those bands live?
Oh, yeah, a bunch of times. So U2, I'm a couple dozen probably. Zach Brown, I'm proud to say I've never paid for a ticket, but no, that's not true. I've seen him a bunch of times. I had the chance to meet him a few times, spend some time with him on his bus. They were outside Birmingham last year. And then when they played our football championship game as part of the game day event, just stayed back and just had a lengthy conversation. That was in 21 with members of the band.
I got to see him in Memphis, and it's a really, really well done show.
Oh, it's a great show. Great music.
So you addressed everybody Monday. That kind of leads things off. It's more or less a State of the Union, I always think, with not just this league, but maybe college football. I mean, NIL and transfer portal are conversations that can't be avoided. But there's laws and there's rules. You're an attorney by trade. There's laws governments pass. There's rules that member organizations pass. I know everyone's asking for help from Congress, but I have a hard time understanding, as a layman, why can't the SEC or the NCAA pass rules that say, hey, here's how we're going to behave as members. Here's the rules we're going to follow. Why does Congress have to be the one to solve the problem?
Well, we're involved in – there are a variety of issues, and part of my intent on Monday is to lay out that this is not just a singular issue like name, image, and likeness. There are a set of realities upon us, one of which is litigation. The NCAA has been sued under antitrust laws repeatedly. We're dealing with lawsuits right now, some of which touch the name, image, and likeness area. So to simply regulate an area when you're in the midst of litigation is not the most wise thing to do unilaterally. State governments can do that, and Congress can do that. And you can have state governments engage in legislative behavior and end up with 50 different approaches, which does not work well at all to have national championships.
I thought
Congress is the venue for that solution.
I thought one of the lines that stood out to me from your address was, in addressing NIL was promises made but not followed through. I'm paraphrasing what you say, but is that, as you talk to ADs, as you talk to staffs around the conferences, how widespread is the issue that, hey, these athletes are being promised one thing and here's what's being delivered?
That's a really important question. There are two elements. One is you'll see reports that somebody received X in NIL commitments or payments, and then you find on the backside that that's not an accurate representation. So people involved in seeking these opportunities are incentivized to inflate the value. Mm-hmm. And so one of the questions is what's real. The second piece, and I've had any number of conversations one-on-one with members of the media who know these stories, but people won't go on the record to share. This commitment was made. I think we've seen a couple of stories. One was out west with a company that promised walk-ons to pay their tuition, and a couple weeks ago an article that said that those promises weren't fulfilled. I think that's the tip of the iceberg. We saw some things in recruiting in our league, some really prominent, with a quarterback who's now at Arizona State with a representation of something that didn't manifest itself. So part of the difficulty for a young person is you might accept this commitment and make a decision to attend a school, and then the support's not there. And you either lose an opportunity, that mm-hmm. NIL opportunity, or you lose an opportunity because you want to go someplace else and all the spots are filled.
We're talking with Commissioner Greg Sankey here on the Morning Rush, as head of the SEC. Is there a timeline with Congress on how this could play out? I know there's multiple variables to that, but have you been given any indication on when this could come to a conclusion?
Not conclusion. Congress sets their own timeline, and it's not a comforting thought often. And back to the earlier question, I don't want to be in the congressional conversations. I have to be. That's simply our reality. There was a bill announced today. In fact, I was on my phone from Senators Booker, Blumenthal, and Moran. So it's a bipartisan bill in the Senate. Those individuals participate on the Committee of Jurisdiction, the Energy and Commerce Committee. I think you'll see, from a timing standpoint, other types of legislation introduced over the next few weeks. That's an indication of commitment. But what we need is a committee of jurisdiction in the House or Senate to produce a bill. So they take a vote and they advance it to the floor, and something to be considered on the floor of the House or Senate. That's where we have not been able to achieve, and that's what we've not been able to achieve, and that's what limits me in answering the timeline question.
How can someone like Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama, who obviously understands both sides, how can he be an ally to the cause, if you will?
He has an understanding from his work in the past. Now, there are politics involved all over the place, and that's
as
one,
with anything.
Yeah, that's one of 100. So we're going to need 59 more people committed to a solution to resolve the matter in the Senate.
Let me ask you this. When you were head of intramural sports back in the day, did you ever think you would be, all these years later, talking with Congress about something like this?
Well, interestingly enough, my successor at Utica College is now the athletics director at Utica University in Utica, New York, and he was here this week. So
was he?
He and I saw each other, and I literally had that conversation. And when I saw him, I was outside, and we had the weather problem with the concert, and people are asking to take photos with me. So there's a whole array of issues where I'll walk away and say, who would have thought?
It's the Paul Rudd video, Tommy, where they're sitting together who would have thought? Not us.
On the Congress piece, we were up there in all 14 of our universities in early June. What was encouraging was the knowledge, the effort to educate and inform, to answer questions, is producing the depth of knowledge that then helps inform decisions, that helps inform bills, and hopefully something that will advance.
I remember back to the intramural sports stuff, you've spoken about, you work like 70, 80 hours a week this.
Yeah.
Did you work more then than you do now, you think, per week?
I don't know. No, this thing is consuming. That was consuming, too, in a different way. You're starting out, and I'd show up about 9:30 or 10, and then intramurals would go to 10 or 11 at night, and I worked on Saturday and Sunday because I was in charge of the facility. I was in grad school. Great learning experience. What I've told folks, and I speak to all of our student volunteers, one of the great lessons I learned is if you're a 19 or 20-year-old college student, to win a $3.90 intramural T-shirt that says "Champion" on the front, you'll literally tear your best friend's arm off for that opportunity. Why do we think we have ethical problems for national championships?
Yeah. So that's where the schedule making skills began, was an intramural. Now you've got some real schedule making challenges here, and that's another conversation that you started on Monday that's obviously been ongoing. But 8 versus 9, I thought you laid out well the rationale, at least for now, to stay to 8, because the quality of the schedules in this league hold up to those versus in the conferences with 9.
Yeah, a couple things we did that are important in June. One is we wanted every one of our current members to play either Oklahoma or Texas, and we achieved that. When you make that decision, one of the great lessons from my intramural days is you start to limit other options. The second was we explored way back in 18-19 moving away from divisions because of the competitive disparity in the schedules, really strength of schedules. It would depend greatly on your divisional alignment, crossovers. And so what we did with the June schedule is not everybody plays the same strength of schedule. That's not possible. We really narrowed the disparity. And then when you see the schedule itself, if you look at it from your perspective as an Arkansas fan, it's like, man, they gave us a tough schedule. And then you go look at Kentucky's schedule, and you're like, wow, Kentucky's got a tough schedule. And you look at the schedule Florida has, and you're like, well, they have a tough schedule. I mean, those schedules are on the good side. You get to see people more frequently with this mentality. You get to see new people, and you have the opportunity to play these huge names in college football history.
We're talking again with Commissioner Greg Sankey here on the Morning Rush. You mentioned how the SEC teams either play Texas or Oklahoma in 2024. Is that going to be flipped in 2025? Because there's a lot of Arkansas fans that really want to play Oklahoma as soon as possible.
And I understand that. That's where when you make certain decisions in scheduling, you start to limit other options. And those are games that we want to see. So I'm going to go to the end. The good news is, in a single division model, you're going to see those games much more frequently than you would have in our old approach. So that game, for example, is coming. Whether it comes in 25, I don't know. It will depend on the schedule we have. So we introduced what I'll call AABB, which would be a yes answer to your question. So you play Schedule A at home on, it would be a no to your answer. You play Schedule A like we have in 24, and then everything flips the next year. And then you go to B, so the remaining, let's see, 7 members would then be added to your schedule, and you'd flip home and away. The other option is to say, okay, here's 24, here's the roster of schools. You're going to play the one permanent if we stay at 8, but flip everything else, and that would give you Oklahoma in a more timely manner than the other model.
SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey with us here, McClarty Daniels Hotline. Any conversation that's begun with basketball and how that scheduling model will look in the expanded league?
Yeah, we've settled on schedules for everything except our women's gymnastics championship. We're relooking at women's soccer scheduling and our baseball tournament format. We will stay at 18 for men's basketball. I'm missing the number of annual opponents, but you'll see everybody in essentially a 2-year cycle. So that work was approved and adopted and ready to go.
What's the biggest issues, biggest things that are going to come across your desk in the next year that got to be resolved?
This name, image, and likeness stuff, litigation is active. Onboarding Oklahoma and Texas growing to 16. We've got staff visits and preparation at facilities and at games, and part of the education, what we expect. It's really what Arkansas and South Carolina went through in the early 90s, A&M and Missouri went through in 2011-12. Work with the NCAA, my A5 colleagues, looking at postseason events that they have. I don't know, the days seem to be filled up.
It seems like a full
getting
calendar.
through a season.
Surviving.
And from intramural sports to Commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey.
There's hope for everyone.
Yeah, we really appreciate you making some time for us.
Yeah,
this morning.
thank you. Thank you for being part of SEC Media Day.
Yeah.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.